So today we're going to be talking about what we do about Prop 64, and because it's so awful, we have to find some kind of remedies to overcome the obstacles presented by this a lot of new restrictions that are practically impossible to adhere to if you're used to Prop 215 with less restrictions. So we're going to be talking about that today, and Shona will be my guest. She's the educational director of Access of Love, a compassionate patients group that gives away free cannabis, and that will continue to do so, and we'll fight for the right to do so, without having to go to jail with the new rules, which prohibits giving away free cannabis, and they threaten you with things like this. And so, we've got to make it very clear to people that you won't have the same rights you used to have under Prop 215, and to be careful. Although you can be careful, or you can just keep going on the way you were, and we'll just try to fix what we can do. And Shona Gokenauer, the educational director of Access of Love, is going to call in and discuss with us the remedies for this new restrictive law that has been passed by the voters by a very small percentage, 53% compared to 56% for Prop 215. So 3% of us were onto it. We're onto the lies of Prop 64. Because we voted yes on Prop 215, but no on 64, because we saw that 64 was a predatory law, and it wasn't written by the people or for the people. So we really shouldn't. We really should figure out how to get out of this mess. So what I've got for today, we're looking for just cannabis policies, not policies. Strategy post Prop 64 strategies for just cannabis policies, not policies as it's written now. So that's gonna, because believe me, this is going to put more people in jail. It might let out about 200 or 300 people might get out of jail as promised, but then that's not very many compared to the more thousands that will go to jail because of Prop 64. So that's what isn't mentioned. So if you had to figure it out, a lot of people didn't. They didn't want to read the 62 pages, and you can see we've got some demands to make of the Democratic Club, because we plan to take these Democratic clubs back. Now we need your help. You have to join Democratic clubs, and we have to get them, point them in the progressive direction, because Prop 64 and other laws that they're, the real estate lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby, Microsoft, they give money to Democrats. So are they really going to? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So that's kind of the theme of this show. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And liberal buzz, we're not the liberal elite. We're the Volkswagen elite. We're the broken down Chevy elite. We're not, and we don't ride around in limousines and take money from corporations so that we do their bidding. So now we want to know about taxing cannabis. There's supposed to be an error in the law about taxing cannabis for medical uses. So Prop 64 has a flaw in where they forgot to tax medical use properly. So I'm sure they'll fix that. We'll find out when Shona calls in. So also, we want to know if
Hello?
Miss Gokenauer.
Miss Dorey.
Hello. I wanted to introduce my call-in guest, Her name is Shona Gokenauer. You've probably seen her on our show before. She's the educational director for Axis of Love, and she's been advocating the giveaway of free cannabis for in the tradition of Brownie Mary, the real Brownie Mary, who gave free cannabis to AIDS patients, and thus it prolonged their lives by, the wasting syndrome, giving them appetite. So Shona's been saving more lives too, mine included. I get free medicine, and that's threatened, and we're going to talk about that. So Shona, you take the lead here. I have a few questions, but I want you to introduce what the news about Prop 64 since it passed by 3%.
Right, and I think that's where we start, is that it didn't pass by a landslide because of people like yourself, Denise, who really got out there and educated and talked to voters. So one of the huge downfalls of not just Prop 64, but the MRSA, the state law, is that it destroys SB 420, which allowed us to get the surplus really to patients who could not afford market rate cannabis. Yeah. And if we don't create a way to preserve these programs, they will be done by 2018. So you're looking at people getting cut off of, 20-year compassion programs that have really brought not just medicine into people's lives, but community, breaking isolation, harm reduction, all this really integral whole plant, whole person approach to healing. So it's a cultural backlash.
So can we? What about the laws we wrote, like MCLR? Can't we vote on that still?
Well, I think there's going to be an effort to get some better laws passed in 2018. In 2018, it might be a combination of the various community ballots that got the punch down from Drug Policy Alliance so that they could, get the political business of passing 64.
Yeah, well, which was basically a billionaire power grab. They just walked in. It was like they came into a poker game and went all in and outbid everybody.
That's exactly what it was like, Denise. Exactly.
It just, yeah. So let's talk about the taxes for medical. Now, when do the taxes for medical kick in, or do they? Was there a flaw in the law?
Well, I think that the law is being relooked at because there is a problem in the taxation portion. But the taxation, if you have the state card or a local health department card, at the point of purchase, you can be relieved of the taxes as a medical patient, which sounds great on the face of it, but then you have to take a deeper look and realize that all cultivation is being heavily taxed, plus all the lobbyists and permitting costs. So regardless if the patient at the cash register who's medical doesn't need to pay a tax, it's already going to be added on in the taxation on cultivation and all the expensive draconian permitting costs hidden and up front. So we're looking at cannabis becoming even less affordable.
So what about the home grows? Are those going to be heavily taxed too, just for your 6 lousy plants? You have to get permits and all that bureaucracy, because you know, to hear people tell it, the advocates for this, the proponents, and the people who vote, some of the people who voted for it just cannot be swayed. There's about I don't know, about 20% of voters. It's hard to talk them out of it. Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't an easy conversation because it was actually a very layered and coded piece. And if you're not well versed in public policy reading and you just read it on the surface level, it's very candy coated. It's a lot of window dressing.
Well, people were fooled into thinking they could just grow 6 plants in anybody's house, you know, and nothing will.
Well, the thing is that it's not a very tenant-friendly piece. So if your landlord writes into your lease ooh, what's that noise?
No, back away from the phone. Back away from the phone. There.
Okay. Is that better?
That's much better. Okay, so, okay, you were saying?
Oh, geez. I kind of lost track there.
Well, so there's basically jail for Brownie Mary now.
What's that?
Jail for Brownie Mary?
Oh, I think that, you know, there is a real risk in compassion providers being pulled over by a local police that wasn't there prior to 64. And I think it's going to be really sad. I mean, I posted a post from a provider in Fresno whose donors didn't donate.
Yeah,
So it's already happening. Growers are already like, there's no reason for me to donate. So boom.
So
and gone.
And if you can't afford to go to a club, you're out.
Basically, you know, the sick have been priced out. And that it couldn't be more backwards from what should have happened in Sacramento and what should have happened at a state level.
So now
we have to readdress it all.
We have to push for a sanctuary city. So who do we have to address? Who's going to address it? Scott Wiener?
Oh, I doubt that Scott Wiener's going to be helpful. He hasn't been helpful yet. I think that, you know, we really have to look to our progressive side of the Democrats to regain some leadership and push forward a consumer-friendly and a patient-friendly local laws and regulations.
Well, you know, the glyphosate, let's talk about glyphosate. That's a chemical that Monsanto uses to kill weeds. And will that be in our cannabis now? And will we have GMO cannabis?
Well, a lot of people fear the GMO cannabis, but I actually think that some of the testing is a good idea.
Well, don't you think? I feel safer with mold and mites than glyphosate.
Wow.
And what about getting the arrest statistics? How many people actually got out of jail from Prop 64?
Well, I think that
I heard less than 200.
And it'll be a very select, small number that will be released from, you know, Prop 64, and it'll last about the next, you know, 2 weeks or so, and then that party's over. Okay,
so now to so-called fix this law, we have to go to the legislators in Sacramento. But we can get a sanctuary city, can't we?
Well, yes. Access to Love already has a resolution up and going to reaffirm our sanctuary status.
Yeah, well, we were the ones that started this after all. We legitimized the cannabis right here in San Francisco. And it
Exactly.
just seems. Now, we also have a new club we're starting. It's called. We don't know the name of it, but it's going to be. We're going to represent.
Ooh, I can't hear.
We're going to represent patients, and at the DCCC. Oh, I guess she hung up. Here, let me call her back. Okay, so it works better on my phone. So we'll call. Okay, while we're waiting for her to answer, we're going to talk about the life sentence and how much of this can we fix. I wanted to know how much of this we can fix actually. Oh, I guess I didn't get through. I'll try later. So this is what I've got written down. Our club accepts no corporate money because see we're not really well represented in the Democratic clubs. So we have to have our own Democratic club, and that would be to accept no corporate money and another mission statement. It's like a bullet point. You know, there's several. It's like a wish list, if you would, not wish, but a list of demands. No jail for weed. No rehab for weed. No rehab for, let's call it cannabis. I'll call it cannabis. And we must counter each one of the Prop 64 untruths. All use is beneficial. Outdoor grows are allowed and encouraged because it cools the climate. Giveaways are allowed. GMOs should be labeled. And no taxes on sick people. You know, just well people. People who aren't sick should pay taxes on their cannabis. People who are well are not well. Sick people shouldn't pay taxes. These are the things I think are right. Because everybody else is trying to define us, so I'd rather define myself before someone tries to step in and define me, because that just hasn't been working. Now, cannabis is not. Here's some of the mistruths. Cannabis is not. It doesn't have a cumulative effect, and it's not. It's a euphoric and an enhancer, not an intoxicant, not like a drug. So it shouldn't be treated like a drug. So the Drug Policy Alliance, I like to call them the Drug Policy Alliance, should be stick with dealing with drugs, actual drugs, not plants. Get away from my cure-all. Because cannabis, let's tell the truth right here. Cannabis is a cure-all, and it's way over. It's regulated practically more than plutonium, alcohol, and cigarettes combined. You know. So we need to help Big Pharma realize we don't need them as often. So Big Pharma, you need to. Let us go. Let us do what, be in control of have health in our hands. Let us be in control of our health. We don't need you. Or your dope dealers, and the lawyers and all the litigation that goes with all the sick people, the people that you made sick or killed. Because there's a lot of litigation behind that. So lawyers love it, of course. Just like they love Prop 64, because they'll get more litigation from that. So, support those who go to jail for cannabis. We need to support them who are going to jail for cannabis. We need to have a support system for them and their families. And we need to expose this French study that they found, because the French were willing to study this objectively, the effect of driving under the influence of cannabis, and they found they found negligible impairment on driving on cannabis. So there goes that, doesn't it? So we'd like to stop suppression of all cure-all herbs, not just cannabis. There's other cure-all herbs like bitter almond. There's several of them. And glyphosate should be banned due to bee colony collapse for any crops, because the cannabis is a crop that they might use it on. I don't know. I mean, if Monsanto's involved, then glyphosate's not far behind. So, and we need to restore the Second Amendment rights to cannabis patients and allow 99 plant compassion gardens. You know, let's put Prop 215 back in. I don't know, why did we get rid of it? It was working fine. Prop 215 worked fine. So, and we need to urge the Democratic Party to listen to non-corporate voices. Non-corporate, because the corporate end of cannabis community is represented already. They're well represented by lots of groups. And so cannabis is a gateway out of addiction. So we've got to have a consensus on the fact that cannabis is a gateway out of addiction once again. And it enhances the way pharmaceutical drugs work, though, so it'll seem it'll seem like it's making things worse, but it just enhances, like alcohol. If you drink alcohol and smoke weed with alcohol, it'll make the alcohol work a little better. And it makes antibiotics work better too. Cannabis, it makes a lot of pharmaceutical drugs work better. So like OxyContin, you might, instead of taking a larger dose, cannabis, you take a smaller dose and maybe wean a person off of it and not have it at all. So let's see, we've got about a minute and a half left. Because we're not well represented. The compassionate community has not been well represented by big money. Well, no surprise, because we've lost $165 million. Medicare has saved $165 million in states where cannabis is legal for medicinal use in the past. So that tells you something. They want their big pharma wants their customers back, don't they? That's all it could be, isn't it? So let's see if I got to everything. I'd like to get the law enforcement statistics for arrests now that Prop 64 is in place. I've seen more enforcement behind cannabis just in my neighborhood, so I'm just really... so I want to keep y'all updated, because I don't want to see... I want to see you be warned about the new laws that they're not cool. Public smoking, watch out for cops. If you're going to smoke in public, watch out for the cops. So I'm going to end this show by... and now I want you to come back and watch us on the 15th of December is the next show. Watch Frank Molinaro this time at 5 o'clock next Thursday. I believe his time slot is, and he's well worth a watch. He's got a lot going on.